Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to welcome Chelsea and Finlay to join me on stage as well. Good afternoon, everyone. Throughout today, we've heard discussions on AI, economic uncertainty, geopolitical shifts, and the future direction of financial markets. But obviously, behind all of these themes is a more personal question. What does it mean to build a career in finance at this moment in time? So this conversation, as Sarah said, it's not really about the future of finance, it's about the people who help shape it, help shape the future. So with that, I'm delighted to be joined by Chelsea Mohammed, the President of Prosper Social Finance, the UK's first student-run, socially responsible investment fund, and Finlay McKee, who is a junior investment analyst at Aegon Asset Management. So I guess I'd like to start with a simple one for both of you. When you first considered a career in finance, what attracted you to the industry, and has it matched your expectations? Chelsea, I'll start with you.
Sure. Okay. Hi everyone. First off, I have no background in finance. I just completed my degree in business studies from the University of Edinburgh. But when I started uni, I came from the Caribbean. I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a small island developing state. And so when we have traditional conversations about finance and the trajectory of it in terms of fairness, equality, transparency, those states are often left out of the conversation. And so I felt that this was the perfect avenue to add my voice, to join in the conversation from my unique perspective. And so I found Prosper, which was completely new to me. I knew nothing about ESG, but it was a space where people who were genuinely curious to learn could enter and become a part of the community, and I think that is what kind of drew me to the world in the first place. And then it just has become a matter of remaining involved and just contributing from a different angle. Through Prosper, yes.
It happened upon the industry and seen the virtues of it rather early on. What about you, Finlay?
Yeah. Just start talking.
Sorry, that's a great start, but I'd just first like to thank GEFI and Aegon Asset Management. It's a great opportunity, so it's a real privilege to be able to speak in front of so many respected individuals. I think I kind of attribute it to somebody previous talked about curiosity. I think initially when I was younger, I felt really curious, and I think my parents would probably attribute it to being more nosy and annoying. But I think it's really helped in terms of my development at high school, and then led me to take the avenue of social sciences. So I studied social anthropology at university. So not nearly aligned with any sort of financial background, but I took that sort of approach, and I think it's kind of helped me get a bit more of a holistic understanding of the world, and it's certainly going into asset management where on a day-to-day basis everything's completely different. I think it's aligned very well, and I've been able to enter the role kind of in a similar manner as anyone who's taken a traditional finance background. But I think it's curiosity that I kind of attribute to joining this industry and this role specifically.
That's really interesting, bringing really unique perspectives. Chelsea, panel before this one was on impact investing. How do you see the expectations? I know you've got fellow students, but you also have a fellow colleagues in Prosper Social Finance who are maybe at the cusp of going and joining maybe they want to go into the asset management industry. But how do you see the expectations of younger professionals evolving when it comes to impact first careers?
I think the evolution of our expectations has changed in a twofold manner. The first of which is that now personal core values no longer aren't, the personal core values, are shifted from simply our own belief systems to what we expect from the core values of the businesses that we want to work with themselves. So in terms of operations, business model, we look to see ourselves reflected in those companies. And then in relation to that is the fact that we want to see a shift from impact as a side note to really embedded in the operations of companies. So we want to see where does the capital and operations of the businesses, where does that go? What inherent social impact does that create? And then in relation to this as well is the fact that because of these expectations, we now require evidence of performance. So whether this be performance metrics in terms of sustainability reporting, we no longer just a mission statement or values aren't enough for us. We want to see that evidence of that work being put in. But I would caveat all of this by saying, although we have these expectations, they are against a backdrop of a lot of uncertainty, especially with regards to AI, the political and macroeconomic volatility that the world is facing today. So we do have these expectations, but we are realistic that we have to contextualize the world in which we're entering the workforce. And this is very applicable to what I believe Mia Motley would have said at COP26. She mentioned that right now the world is at a fork in the road. I would say that is relevant to the young professionals entering the industry. We are at a fork in the road in terms of balancing these expectations that we have with the reality of the volatility that we are facing. Yes.
Definitely, it's indeed, as you say, a challenging backdrop, and certainly, you work for a major asset management firm. So first of all, well done. I think we've seen recently, like the Milburn report, it's quite difficult out there for us. But for young professionals entering traditional finance roles, you've said you've not come to this from a traditional route. So from entering a traditional finance role, how do you balance that technical investment skills, but that growing expectation that was mentioned here about around sustainability and impact? How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, I think going into Aegon Asset Management, sort of balancing those skills has not been as much about balance. It's kind of ESG sort of been integrated within our investment process. So from day one, I've entered the industry, and they've worked in tandem, and I think that's kind of allowed me to take a step back and view the industry where these were separate, and ESG analysis was a sort of niche and a sort of specialty, and understand how overlooked opportunities were if these aren't part of the core investment process. So, we can just take an easy example of looking at a company like Novo Nordisk, where we're in where if we went back maybe 10, 20 years, looking at the financial metrics and traditional analysis of what a company like that looks like is probably not as attractive as you'd hope. But if we take in kind of integrated a overlay of ESG and a sustainable perspective, and kind of not just dialing in on financial markets daily and taking a little bit of a more holistic approach towards academia, notably at Aegon Asset Management, about responsible investment team who deliver regular insights through thematic kind of sessions. So you get a bit more insight into the world beyond a company that maybe has poor underlying financials, and you'd maybe have seen the fact that obesity was on the rise, not only in it wasn't a developed nation problem, it was kind of a developing nation problem, and if you don't integrate these two factors, you're overlooking a lot of opportunities in the market and sources of alpha. So, yeah.
It's really interesting. It seems like got a positive story you've had upon Aegon, and yes, the insights are always very welcomed and great, Miranda. So thank you for that. But do you think for other young professionals, whether you've connected with kind of students, your former students, how have they found going into the industry? Have they come with, because it seems as your expectations have been met, and that balance is not it's not a struggle with the organisation you're in, but do you find that there are maybe young professionals coming in with unrealistic expectations of expectations about how quickly change can happen, coming straight from academia into that?
Yes, yeah, no, definitely, I'd agree, and I'd say Gen Z is kind of labelled often as a bit of a lazy generation, but I think it's very ambitious workers, and anybody that I kind of meet across the industries is an ambitious generation that kind of wants to get involved. But I think that, again, I'll bring back this overlay of curiosity is kind of the key to how people are kind of gaining experience across the industry, and yeah, that's.
Thanks, Finlay. Yeah, we won't slip into Gen Z dialect because I don't think we share a glossary of terms with everyone. So, Chelsea, for you?
Yeah, if I could add to that, I'd say that expectations only seem unrealistic when those we look towards to fulfill those expectations have misaligned priorities. So for us, not to slip back into the Gen Z rhetoric, we've grown up within a different world. You know, we've seen the impact of the climate crisis, for example, and so we have different priorities in terms of, you know, what we want within the workforce. So of course we'd lobby for these things, and so I wouldn't necessarily label these expectations as unrealistic. I would say that they are definitely more aspirational, and we definitely demand more. Yeah.
It's really interesting. At this point, I'd like to bring in the audience, actually, and I know you were discouraged from reflections and comments, but rather, you know, succinct questions. But I would like to go to our audience for some reflections on, you know, what is the one thing you wish someone had told you before you started a career in finance, and perhaps you found it in rather than unconventional terms, unconventional routes like our panelists here. But, you know, what's the one key thing that you would have liked to have known? I guess just a kind of raise of hands, and then one of our lovely helpers can come in. Oh, so Joe at the front, please, Yusuf. Thank you.
Thanks. Jo Walker from Royal London. I wish I had known that it was okay that I didn't do well at school and that I didn't have a degree and that I was still going to be let in the club. Because I didn't know. I didn't know actually that there was a career for someone who cared about the planet and people in finance. And so I wish someone had told me, because I feel like I could have been working in this industry longer, but like many people in, I think, sustainability roles, I fell into it. In sustainable finance, I didn't set out to be in finance, but I wish I'd have known that you didn't need a degree and the perfect education, and that you could still add value in the industry.
That's really interesting. Someone at the back as well. Remember, there was a reflection from during our work we did at our task force around, you know, skills and development and regional in finance in Scotland, and they'd said, you know, we want young people to be encouraged to, you know, if you want to change the world, don't join Extinction Rebellion, join a bank, and, you know, deliver change that way. Yes, up the back.
So I'm Katrina Patterson. I'm a sustainability advisor in emerging markets to investors and banks in emerging markets. Just recently come back to the UK from living in Asia for 18 years. And I think the thing that I wish I had known when I started my career is that you can almost categorize people as believers, non-believers, and don't want to believe, and that as an advisor, the critical thing that I need to learn still is how to convince and advise and influence people who don't believe or don't want to believe that there is part of that we are right, that our bubble is right, and to convince them that they're wrong, and they should believe and they should want to believe that sustainability is important, and we need to do this. And I've come across many people where the key thing I have to do is work out how to change their minds in the work I do.
Yeah, definitely to bring people with you. Anybody, any other reflections? Fiona?
Here we go. So to my joy, I discovered that accountants are so much more than bean counters. Everybody thinks, you know, accountants are all about the numbers and, you know, profits and balance sheets and everything, but it's a pathway, a qualification and a pathway into so many roles. Our members are in so many exciting roles, including Omar today and Roisin, many in the room. So it's just incredible the skill set that some qualifications give you, but then the pathway into such rich diversity of opportunities that it leads to. So.
Thank you, Fiona. Back to my wonderful panelists. So I guess what surprised you? What any of that resonates? Any of that kind of helps you? Yeah.
I actually will be going into accounting post graduation, so that's very reassuring.
Have another member, Fiona. And you, Finlay, any reflections on those comments?
No, I just go to your point about knowing that you don't have to have these sort of the backing and the qualifications in specific fields. I think nowadays it's just the world's your oyster. I really hate to be cliche, but I do think that you don't really need these sort of niche and specialist degrees or qualifications to get into things. And I think that's certainly something that I've learned. I really did struggle getting into financial services post-university, so I took the approach to going on the Investment 2020 program. So it was more of a junior position than you'd come into the graduate world, but it really did provide me with a skill set and not throw all of my life into asset management and decide in the first 6 months I absolutely hated it. So it's like I had that kind of flexibility of a year internship, and I've loved it since. I really have enjoyed my time at Aegon Asset Management. So here's to many more years, I'd say.
This is a great initiative, as is Future Asset, which are represented well here. Supporting with into finance at the kind of school level. So great to know all those important initiatives are going on. I guess to close, I'd like to ask if we were to meet again in 10 years' time, celebrating ethical finance. It wasn't my strong suit, math, so at least maybe there's an opportunity. But if we were reading an ethical finance global 2036. What is the word change in the finance industry that you hope our generation will have helped kind of bring about? As you said, esteemed panelists today reflecting on the decades experience that they have. But what are your goals in 10 years time? What would you like to see in the industry?
That's a great question. I would say right now, although this is not totally the case, there's a lot of sentiment around things like ESG and sustainability reporting as being risk mitigation, sort of like checkboxes that you need to fill out in order to prevent yourself from being prosecuted by regulators and things like that. But I see these things as opportunity, and I think within the social impact space, for example, having clean operations, clean supply chain, those things are really competitive advantages for businesses. And I think if more people were to acknowledge that, I think it would be much easier to kind of have this conversation about social impact without it being so contested.
Thank you, Chelsea and Finlay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think if I take more of a view of a young professional entering, the workplace, I just hope that in 10 years' time you're not having to apply to 100 jobs and get met with AI emails immediately back. So it's, I hope there's a lot more sort of apprenticeship schemes. These initiatives that really do help people get into the industry just completely grow and flourish. And that's my final point.
Well, thank you very much, both. The key things that's emerged, not only here but also throughout the days. While it's a very complex industry and world, there's also tremendous opportunity. And as we said at the beginning, future finance is not going to be determined by all of these facts that we discussed today, of markets, technology, shaped by policy. It's going to be shaped by the values and skills and decisions of people entering the industry and profession today. So please join me in thanking Chelsea and Finlay.